The 10th of January 1977, 12 a.m. Indianapolis, Indiana. I was at high school signing up for night school, walking from one building to another. Just looked up and saw the fluid-like fireball. It had a shape like a cocoon trying to hatch but was a gyrating type of flame ball. Hovering a lot. I would guess it to be approximately 1/2 to 3/4 of a mile in diameter, but the diameter pretty much kept the same volume. I was sure at the time it to be extraterrestrial. Later I was wondering if it could be a chariot of fire from heaven. It was hovering what I figured to 2 Oregon 3 miles south of ME, and I would guess 1,000 to 2,000 feet in altitude. After hovering what seemed to be around 30 or 40 seconds, it started moving north and east, not in a straight line. It would move and hover as it moved northeast. I probably watched for 4 or 5 minutes. I stopped an older teacher walking by and said, "Look at that," and he put his head down and kept walking. I had to get into my next class to sign up for another class. So that's when I quit looking at it. By then it was probably 4 or 5 miles northeast of me. I would guess it would move 1 or 2 miles in 1 or 2 seconds.
The 13th of October 1978, 12 a.m. Indianapolis, Indiana. It was a weekend. I was around 9 years old. I'm 41 now. I remember like it was yesterday. I lived in a 3-bedroom house with one little sister and one older brother. My stepfather was a deputy sheriff at the time. Every night I would check the doors and windows to make sure they were locked. My brother and sister were already asleep and my parents, but I couldn't sleep and I heard the police K9 barking in the garage. So I checked all the doors and the windows in my brother and sister's room and went to check mine. And there it was when opened my carton, looking right at me with oval eyes, head shaped like an egg with big eyes and a skinny neck. I screamed and screamed looking at it as it nodded its head left to right. I shut the window, carton, and my father and mother ran into the bedroom and asked me what's wrong. I told them it's something in my window, and they went to my window and opened the carton and it was gone. So they said I must have been dreaming a scene with an owl, and I kept telling them what I saw. The K9 was still barking, so my stepfather grabbed his gun and called his sheriff buddies, and they came over and grabbed the K9 out the garage and checked around the house. They checked outside my window, and the little tree outside my window was smashed like if something just stepped on it. So his sheriff buddies left and my stepfather put the dog back in the garage, and he came in and told me no more screaming, and if I do, he'll get a whooping. He told me to go lay in the front room on the couch, so that's what I did. Then it had to be about 3 or 4 in the morning. While lying on the couch, you could see the kitchen window. I was so scared I laid on the couch after my stepdad cut the lights off and went back into his room, and everybody went back to sleep but me. I took one look toward the kitchen window, and there it was again looking right at me, moving its head back and forth. I was so scared to yell because I feared I would get in trouble and get a whooping and no one would believe me. So I put the cover over my head and laid still like if I were asleep, hoping it would go away. Then after a while I felt like there were spider webs going around my feet and up towards my waist and then my neck. I closed my eyes, so scared to move. I felt like I was wrapped in a cocoon somehow. I woke up in the morning to my mother finding me on the kitchen floor by the window with no covers or clothes, with a mark on my waistline. My mother said, "What was I doing in the kitchen on the floor, sleep with no cover, no clothes?" And I said, "I don't know." Then she took me to the doctor and they asked her, "Have I ever had surgery?" And my mother said no. So they had me lay on a table trying to figure out how I got a line so perfect like a laser cut, and at the time I don't think the doctors had that kind of technology. So they asked so many questions but couldn't figure out how did I get that perfect line below my waist, but it didn't hurt. So we left the hospital and I went to stay with my grandmother. My mother took me to another doctor, I believe a psychiatric doctor, and they told her there's nothing wrong with me. And whatever I seen, it was something, and I'm very bright and to listen to me because I seen something. So that was the last of it, and mother and stepfather, in a couple more years, they separated and my mother moved a lot. Every time people would call asking about me, she would move, and when I got grown I noticed strange things happening around me. I would be driving and at night I would look at the stars, and one particular star seems to be coming close, and I made sure it wasn't a plane or helicopter. It followed me from one side of the city to the other side. It would just hover a bright light I seen it night after night for about 5 or 6 months. I was around 35 years of age, but I kept it to myself.
The 6th of June 1988, 12 a.m. Indianapolis, Indiana. One night when I was 5 years old, I awoke in my bed and saw it was daylight outside. I went to a babysitter's every day, and sometimes my mum would oversleep and I was in no hurry to wake her and go to the 85-year-old babysitter's. When I drew back my curtains, the ground was illuminated but the sky was still dark. Confused, I shut the curtain and sat back down in my bed. I looked over in my doorway where a little grey alien stood. My 5-year-old mind had no concept of what an alien was. I thought it was a gremlin of some kind because that was the frame of reference I had. I attempted to scream for my mum, but nothing came out. Then the alien was on my bed staring me in the face. He let me know non-verbally he was not here to hurt me and that I would be alright. The next events are hazy, but I remember standing in my kitchen with 3 or 4 all together and a horribly blinding light pouring in through my kitchen window. I woke up the next morning and asked my mum if she heard me calling for her. She replied no and asked what I wanted, and just like that my mind was blank and I was no longer concerned. About 15 years later, I am lying down attempting to sleep, a phrase I heard on the television that evening, screaming in the dark, echoing in my head when it floods back. Imagine your mate's surprise when you shoot out of the bed sweating and yelling you were abducted by aliens. Imagine your own psychological battle with sanity after you dig up some unbelievable repressed memory. Where are our support groups? Why does no one care? Why are we reporting alien abductions on a $% in website? 5,000 years ago, if you saw an alien and were abducted, you were hailed as a prophet. Now everybody just thinks you are crazy.
Hi, and I have something to talk about an abduction that happened to me. I am 57 years old now, but this thing started when I was a little girl. I was outside playing when my sister told me years later. She saw a very large UFO in the skies watching me while I was playing. I only remember going to the basement at night because something was calling. As I got older, I started college. That's when I saw them. I was doing my clinical for nursing school when I first saw one. He looked like a doctor. He had a white jacket on, and as I was walking up to the nurse's station, he turned around and his eyes were all black, no whites in his eyes. Then he blinked and his eyes were normal again. I thought, wow. Then I thought, no, you didn't see anything. The next thing that happened. I will try to explain this the best way I can. The next thing, I was in a room in the hospital and this man was in front of me with his back to me and I was walking towards him. Then my instructor grabbed me by the shoulder and said, "You are not supposed to do this person." Tense up as I was looking at him, but he never turned around. Then I wondered, how did I get in here? Then I followed my instructor out of the room. A few nights later, I was in bed with my husband, and then I woke up and looked out the window and I saw flashing lights, red, green and other colors outside my bedroom window. But I was thinking, we are upstairs, why do I see these lights just outside my window? The next thing I know, I looked down at the foot of the bed. I saw this thing. It had very large black eyes and it was tall and pure white with a shirt on. The shirt was a plaid shirt and it was looking at me. Then that is all I remember, but they did something to my belly. To this very day, I can't stand for someone to touch my stomach, my belly button. I had other encounters around this time as well. I was 29 years old. I need to talk about it because I used to cry a lot when I thought about it, but now, I would like to know, what's going on? I gave my life to God and I love Him very much, but I know there are things going on in this world that need to be explained. So can you explain any of this?